Sixth grade, we had
I have
Right.
also a bunch of books.
So we are calling to order the August 25th, 2025 meeting of the Beacon City School District Board of Education. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Vicki, can you call the roll?
Here. Present.
Here.
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 Here. Matt, can you review the fire exits?
Exits are in the back of the LGI.
Thank you. Okay, open it to the public. Are there any sign-ins on the sheet? I think if it's just you, then go ahead, come on up and introduce yourself. And just a reminder, you have 4 minutes on the clock and you're all good to go. Okay.
My name is Helen Enan. I am a parent of South Avenue students. I've been a resident of Beacon since 2017, and I love it here. Okay, started. Thank you guys for having public comments and giving us a chance to speak. Thank you for all of the work that you do for our schools. Thank you for volunteering for the board. It is not easy, and I am often humbled by the amount of work and dedication you show. Thank you, Mr. Landau, and the rest of the district administrators for the work you do for our students every day and the hard decisions I know you have to make. I'm here today to talk about one of those hard decisions, I think, and hope to persuade you to change your mind. So I also am building off of Matt Casey's comments from the last board meeting, and I did watch that, and I saw the discussion you guys had, and I thank you guys for your thoughtfulness there too, and the attention that you're paying to our first grade, which I know might feel like a huge zoom in for something like the Board of Ed. So it warms my heart to see so many people in our community talking earnestly about the best way to achieve the goals of public education. For me, those goals begin with skills. The purpose of public school is to give children a strong foundation in numeracy and literacy, and then to build on that, obviously, and to let them grow into amazing little human beings with a huge variety of interests. So the foundation is laid in the smallest number grades, and ideally in small class sizes, which I know you know is important because when you came here, it was something you prioritized, Mr. Landau, and you guys supported him. So then I think we get into what is small and why does small matter. I've shared research with all of you on the bounds of small and how researchers define small versus how policymakers have traditionally defined small. If you have questions, please let me know. South has enjoyed the smallest class sizes in all of the district, I've come to realize. And I think that's great. My son has been at South now for 5 years, and he's never had a class larger than 16 kids. I honestly didn't realize that till the Calico Ball this year, when I was looking at all the other third grade classes, thinking like, wow, these look a lot bigger than South. I guess small is different based on the school you're in. I see this as a huge opportunity for us as a community to perhaps engage not in cutting a classroom from one school, but to think about how we could rezone incoming kindergarteners to balance class sizes. I would not ask you to keep our class sizes at 13 indefinitely. I would ask you not to increase them by 61% in a single year for a group of 42 students, which is what we're doing. And when you look at balancing across the grades, you might be thinking we're at 20, averaging 20, or 19 or 18, whatever the average is. But I doubt many of those rising first graders are going from 13 kids to 21 kids. My daughter is in this grade. I've spent a lot of time with these students. I've come to really care for all of them, and I can see their faces when I'm here advocating for them. And I know that this change will be very hard on them. I know last meeting you guys talked about extra supports, but the truth is, and I'm sorry, I have no real good filter. I'm certainly not a politician. The truth is they will have no extra support this coming year. Last year, 3 classes had 2 teachers and an aide, 1 teacher and an aide, and 4 adults, 2 teachers and 2 aides. I think that was based on IEP needs. This year we'll have 2 classes, one with 4 teachers, or one with 4 adults, the 2 teachers, 2 aides, also based on IEP constraints, and the other with one adult and one aide. So there will be more students with no additional supports. Last year we had an AIS math teacher. This year we have an AIS math teacher. Last year we had an AIS reading teacher. This year we have an AIS reading teacher. I know that there's a literacy coach, but I also know we're rolling out a brand new reading curriculum with HMH. So the teachers have to do K through 2 HMH reading curriculum this year, and they have to start DIBELS screening on a more regular basis. Those are 2 additional asks for them. They are phenomenal teachers. You mentioned that last meeting, Mr. Lendl, and I cannot agree more. My son had one of them. Both of them were there when my son was in 1st grade. Super impressed with them. I know the aides that are going to be in the inclusion classroom, which my daughter will be in again, and I'm highly supportive in inclusion education. I'm glad my daughter is in this class. I'm the daughter of a special ed teacher. And I know that this class will struggle terribly. I do not believe we are providing them with supports that would make up for the class size change that they will be experiencing. So in the goal of maintaining small class sizes, I would ask us to think not of making one grade in one school kind of a shockwave of change, but instead doing it gradually over time and allowing for those changes from an incoming kindergarten grade, perhaps being a bit more creative in the way we try to get under 20 for all of our schools. And I know I'm at time now, so I want to thank you for giving me this time to speak and for taking the time to think about this more. I hope your minds are still open to change. I don't know what change looked like now that class lists are made, but I believe that you can make the change because you are in charge. So thank you again for your time. And if you have any questions for me, you have my emails, and my phone number, I think, is in those emails. If not, I'd love to get on the phone and chat with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I've said stuff in emails, and I said, I think, a fair amount last week. The one thing we will certainly, so we have, at least when I looked on Friday afternoon, our Forrestal and South 1st grades are the same number of kids, same number of teachers. And so with both of those groups, I've asked SAGI to work with both of the principals. I can't always remember what I said. I may have said this last time, so forgive me for repeating it. And if in either of those classes, in either of those schools, if more support is needed in the way of like an additional teaching assistant or something like that, we certainly will make that possible. And so we'll be assessing that right from the start of the year. I think the one change that I think is going to be a little bit more significant just across all 4 elementary schools is that last year 4 schools were sharing 3 math intervention teachers. This year we have one in each building. That's sharing. And I'm sort of one who's like, I'll say to the principals and the team, like we can't do all 4. We got to share. Sharing just causes issues, travel, scheduling, all that kind of stuff. Having one of those teachers based in each school, I think, will have a really huge impact. I think the last thing I'll say, just in general, is about Helen used the term rezoning, or I think in some places it's referred to as redistricting. I think certainly, like moving forward in the future, and it's partially with development, especially with the downstate property, looks to be more family centered. I know it's still quite a ways away from like starting, but I think we're going to have to really start preparing for, and I don't want to start some massive fear kind of thing, right? Like the few days before the school year starts. So this would be kind of a long process, but I do think redistricting in general, probably more based on that development, and maybe there may be another development or two that might be a little bit more family/student oriented.
The MTA one
is something
is
that we'd
in-
have to look at. What's that?
The MTA one, it seems to be coming online faster, and that
Right.
is affordability driven. And that
Right.
might attract more families, and
Right.
that would probably be right for South.
Right. So, that certainly is something that we've just had kind of informal conversations about. And then I think I said this at the last meeting too, but I was just kind of looking at the numbers, and numbers right now obviously become a lot more solid after the school year starts, but South Avenue still, not that I'm really ranking things, but it still has like the lowest teacher to student ratio in the district, has the best sort of proportion of paraprofessionals in the district that aren't special education related. And this certainly, most or all things in the district come to me, and I embrace that. But this is also something certainly that we talked with Kelly Amendola, the principal at South. There are some small classes still remaining at South, and her input on that was kind of crucial to where we kind of went in terms of small classes for this upcoming year. So maybe that's not necessarily anything new. I really appreciate redistricting being brought up tonight, because that's something certainly like in the future that we are for sure thinking about, just in terms of all of the building, and then especially some of these more family-friendly ones coming online. But that's all I have for right now.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for sharing your thoughts with us tonight. So I assume that there is nobody else here to make a comment, so we will move on to tonight's workshop.
Yeah, interesting.
So tonight, I'm just going to ask members of my team if I ask them to talk about something, or if you all have a question, please just, we don't have to wait till the end. I'm just asking members of my team if they can come up to the microphone, just so it can be heard on the streaming. So tonight is just kind of a first draft of our thinking in terms of, I did a presentation last February where we've had this practice of having board goals, and then we've been trying to work on strategic plan stuff, and I've really wanted to try to merge it. And so I really see tonight is just like a first attempt at that. I would love to, by October, at least have some of this, some of these thoughts kind of on some level approved by the board or given a yes to. But we really wanted what we talked about tonight to be reflective of the work we've been planning, the work we've been doing, and also just reflective of stakeholder input and everything that goes into that. So what we're kind of focusing on this presentation is just major actions for the most part that we're undertaking this year in a lot of different areas. One of the struggles with something like this is, and I'll already grade myself, I don't think I captured this perfectly for tonight. I tried to put forward, here are new things we're doing this year, and not trying to just sort of list everything we have been doing over the past 4 or 5 years, right? So some of that I certainly can kind of go back and fill in, but most of this I feel like for the most part are things that are new or new within the last few months, or things that maybe we started last year. Last thing about strategic planning, about 4 years ago we engaged with kind of a consulting group out of BOCES, and they helped us and did a great job kind of getting our strategic plan off the ground. But then further reflection over the last couple of years, it really wasn't reflective of some of the work that we were doing, especially in regards to the academic side. And so there was really amazing ideas in that strategic plan. We're going to try to carry those over, or they're infused in some of this work, but it wasn't reflective of the work we were doing in reading, math, for instance, and things like that. So this is an attempt without consultants, because we're trying to limit some of that as just with our budget planning. We're trying to move forward with our thinking for this. So the 4 main focus areas, which is sort of my attempt to merge board goals and strategic plan, is just academic excellence, culture of care, communication, and operations. So I talked about that back in February in terms of like a way to kind of merge this work. And then I tried next to sort of just group together all of like the actions and major initiatives that we're doing this year under each of these kind of categories. But first, when we did this work 4 years ago, we developed a mission and a vision. These are the two things that are at the core of all those 4 focus areas, with obviously our students at the center. And then we developed, at that time, 3 belief statements. Diversity is our strength, equitable education, culture of care. And then I mentioned this back in February, but I added sustainability. I kind of took the board goal language and just changed it a tiny bit. Because what we'd really like to do moving forward is having these beliefs like diversity is our strength and sustainability be like a foundation for everything we do in all of our focus areas.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so this part I get a little confused about. And I'm just going to lay out sort of where my brain is. So we have 6 board goals, right? So they're academic excellence, culture of care, fiscal, which now would be operations, sustainability, what am I forgetting? Communications, and
Equitable education.
and equitable education. So we have those 4, and those make sense to me. And then, those 6, and those make sense to me. But then the 4 here, are we saying that we are reducing our goals to these 4 areas? That's my first question.
Yes.
Okay. So if sustainability is no longer a part of it, and if
We're not saying no longer a part of our work.
not that it's no longer a part of our work, but it's no longer a part of our sort of overarching goals.
Right.
And then what was the other one? Equity is no longer a part of our overarching goals. Is that where, the reason I'm confused is because then we have these beliefs, and I think diversity is our strength and equitable education. Like, I understand those as beliefs, but the culture of care and sustainability kind of feel like goals to me. I guess I'm a little confused. I don't know if anybody else is having this experience looking at this. Like, I'm not sure.
I think part of the thinking from my vantage point is we talked about this a lot internally. We wanted like the diversity goal to not be like this separate goal. We wanted to infuse diversity
Which totally
in
makes
terms
sense.
of diversity as our strength.
Yes.
And equitable education in everything we do.
Right.
This is just my thought. To me, it made sense that we did the same with sustainability. Like it's a part of everything we do, and we try to like infuse it in those 4 focus areas instead of just having it be like its own thing. That's as deep as the thought gets.
No, I hear you. But even the way
so
it's
I'm not-
phrased, it's phrased as a goal and not as a belief.
Okay.
And the
Right.
same with culture of care. It's phrased as a goal and not as a belief.
Right.
So that's where I get confused. And when there's overlap between culture of care as a belief and culture of care as a goal, I don't know that that's necessary.
Right.
So
I think the reason I carried culture of care into both and not meaning to confuse is I think we all really like the phrasing of it, and we we just like what it means to people. And so that's kind of, it's not a great argument, but that's why we have it in both. So what we can do, so part of my thought for tonight is, I know it's like impossible for a board to speak with one voice unless they're voting on stuff, and I'm not asking for like a bunch of votes for sure, but like we really see tonight's discussion as a way for us to make changes and revisions to this, and there's also a lot we need to add.
okay.
So what I'm hearing is you're not sure about sustainability, but like make the culture of care, and if we had sustainability be a belief statement, write it as a belief statement. not like a goal.
Yeah, yeah. If we're saying like these 4 things are not just goals, but they are like philosophies that we're integrating into everything that we do, then it needs to be framed as a philosophy and not as a goal.
Okay.
I think that's where I get a little tripped up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's just like it's a way to, and I'm always trying to think like, what does just any employee in our district think?
Right.
And I'm not. They're thinking about a lot of stuff. They're probably not like worried about sort of some of this part.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's not important. I'm simply saying that like the reason I had the sustainability as a belief is, to me, when we talk about our beliefs, when I talk about beliefs with people, whether it's employees or the community,
I don't know that anybody really, I don't feel like that one ever caught on.
Yeah, and the reason why,
Just to
yeah,
be-
the
As the
reason,
person who championed it, I will say that I just feel like
Right.
whenever it was really like came out of the facilities committee where it was like, so we think about our resources and that the idea that it would like kind of weave into our curriculum with, was it Green Ribbon School?
right.
And then I feel like it just kind of hung on, but anytime principals would present on it, I was like, I feel like they would interpret it as like sustaining things so that it's stuff we could pay for going forward.
Like scalability or something.
Yeah, and I don't know, like I feel like, I think if you were to ask any employee, I think they would not know what that was really about.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I would say is the benefit of it having been a goal is that we're talking now about the metrics we want to use to measure those goals. And so if that drops off, then we're kind of dropping off on really measuring that. I don't know if we even have the capacity to really measure that right now.
I think there's different ways.
Yeah, but I think there's value in that. And if it's a belief, then we're not doing
I
that.
mean, I think it really falls under, is fiscal responsibility is still a
Like operations.
operational effectiveness. I think it really
Yeah.
lives there because, one of the
a
things
good
that
point.
we were doing was the like energy tracking and I mean those costs are probably ticking up. So it sort of fits to me under operational and then like as a sub of fiscal, like being how we're using resources, the capital project planning sort of stuff. Like just thinking about, because I don't think it just never infused into the curriculum, so it really just lives in those other places.
I do think the one benefit of having sustainability as like a value is we could ask how to measure it in the course of each goal. So like, what does sustainability mean in culture of care, right? Well, it means we can't just do positivity project if it goes away in a year. We want to do it in a sustainable way, and I think the district has done a great job in doing that in a sustainable way. I don't know if that's what everyone means by sustainability. It's not environmental sustainability, but to me, sustainability means like the ability to sustain. Like, can you make it last for a long time?
Right, yeah, we had originally meant it.
Just as environmental sustainability?
Yeah.
When it was a board goal originally, it was supposed to be that, but I do think, I mean, I think that is part of the complicated part of that, is creating the metrics around it. How are we measuring it? I think it could be measured, I mean, I think the word would probably be used in both ways within our goals, so.
Because to me, that's what's more important. Is like if we don't think that folks in the district know what it means, like, do we know what it means first? If it's a value, so. And I would be curious, like, Matt, I'm not sure if you're proposing like an environmental sustainability lens here, or just like a broader sustainability lens. Obviously, I think there's a good argument for both. But like, if we don't know what it means and what we're saying, then other people definitely.
Yeah, and I think it's always been muddy. Like it was originally, we had a sustainability committee there. We were working under a rubric of like Green Ribbon School. There were some faculty involved, but it just like, it didn't have buy-in. Like it just didn't. And it kind of, I think we didn't want to totally let go of it, but at the same time, I've never seen it sort of, I think it's been interpreted a variety of ways, and that's sort of a learning in and of itself. So I think, to your point, I agree that I think things that we add, like even just looking at under the culture of care, I see a new program in there, but I think about like we have like GLSEN, we've had DARE, we brought in a drug and alcohol counselor, we've invested in social workers, but it's sort of like, what are the things, like, it's like, this is, Positivity Project, I think, is something that, like, seems to be getting traction and moving along, but yeah, if we could redefine it as something that has some durability or some, that the way we invest in things that we want to foster and actually grow and continue, instead of, like, my brother's a teacher and he loves sending me these Instagram reels of like joking admins talking about new programs, like, and that they and that it's something new each year and they have to adapt to it. So I do think I just think, like, it didn't like sort of take root here. It took as a environmental initiative. It took root in sort of an ad hoc way. There's clubs and things like that, and that seems to have worked. But I think the idea of being intentional about what we bring into the community and how we foster it might be the more understandable thing that fits.
I mean, I think a discussion just about what sustainability means might be worthwhile, so that we're all sort of talking about the same thing, because I think that there's more student interest in that than there's ever been. There's the environmental clubs and things like that, and in terms of the environmental sustainability, that's what I'm talking about right now.
Right.
So I wouldn't call it like dead in the water. I think that there, a lot of times it's student interest that will drive something into, really being more of a robust idea in the district. And I think that is there, certainly more than it was. So, but just back to that, I feel like that's like its own conversation. So just back to what you were bringing up of like, okay, these are our 4 headings, and then we have our belief system. And then, should we hear the rest of what I still am sort of processing is like, in past years, we've always had the discussion of like the board goals. And so I guess my question for you is like, are you hoping that the board will adopt these 4 goals, or is there room for the board to have a discussion and say like, this doesn't feel like it's totally covering this, or making sure that each one of these is an umbrella for what the board collectively means by their goals?
I think the quick answer is I think we have every intent to make changes based on feedback from the board, for sure. So that's the short version. I think I think my ultimate goal was we were doing all of our work over here in all these different areas, and the board goals felt like they were over here. Mm-hmm. And so, like, this is an attempt simply to say, board goals, here's all the work we're doing, like, let's, sort of fuse this process. So tonight is not like here's the complete plan, like, vote on it, because it needs a lot of work.
Sure.
Just in terms of, like, wording and detail and things like that. But just in terms of like, here's all the things we're doing to support these different board focus areas. So I was simply thinking like the board having 6, to me, I was thinking of a way of trying to make it, I mean, I'm not like stuck on the number 4, but to me, I thought doing like broadening the fiscal one to like a more operational one, because it's such a huge part of the district, right? Like transportation, business office, like that kind of stuff. So like, so that's where it came from. So like we don't need to get hung up on where we put sustainability, or because I really, to me, it was just like an attempt to like, it felt like more of a belief to me. I mean, this is honestly just my opinion. More than anything.
That all makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's worth drilling down a little bit about the beliefs and what, like what we mean by that. I don't necessarily know that happens in this meeting, right. But this is just a great example of how 9 different people can be thinking 9 different things.
I mean, but part of my, and this isn't me trying to fast forward through the work of this, but part of my vision for this is that becomes a regular part of board meetings. So I think we still want to keep like the school presentations, like it's really great to hear from our principals. We obviously want to do budget development in the winter and spring. But I'd really like, whether it's like the superintendent report part of the meeting, I'd really like to strengthen that part and have it be us just giving like quick updates on different parts of this on a very regular basis, whether it's every 2 weeks or once a month. And I don't want it to be just for me. I want it to be from, my team or our team too. And, so, because I just, in honest reflection, like we would kind of have these board goals and they just were kind of there, like I said, and we were kind of doing all this stuff over here. So what I'd really like, and this is maybe more of a qualitative goal for our work together, is that we have more conversation around this stuff and you're getting more sort of regular updates. Like we will still, I think having formal presentations is really good. And I think hearing from all of our different like department chairs and or department heads and principals is really important. But I'd really like to fuse this in some way. And that's kind of for you all to tell me how you want that. But I think it could take sort of, it would help board understanding of things. It would help, give us feedback too. It raises like a level of accountability on some of these things too, like they don't get forgotten or we just got really busy dealing with these other things and we didn't do that one. And sometimes that, not that we don't completely do something, but sometimes priorities shift or you have a big crisis that you're dealing with. But I'd like it to be a regular part of the meeting where we're just checking in on these things. And it's not maybe such a formal presentation, but it's more like, here's where we are, X, Y, and Z.
I like that idea a lot. I think this conversation is very helpful because I think you're right that especially in terms of getting metrics and really having real conversations about what are we doing and how is it working, like that makes a huge difference year over year, just so we can sort of check in and understand, like, are we living these goals? Are we reaching these goals? And I guess explaining it in terms of like the goals are the things the sort of big buckets of what we want to actually accomplish, and then the beliefs are sort of infused into each of those goals. That makes sense. Like that's a helpful way of explaining it. So yeah, just I guess then it comes down to, and obviously this is an ongoing conversation, but just making sure that we're being sensible about where those beliefs plug into different goals and making sure that we have metrics that reflect not just the goals, but the beliefs underlying them.
Right.
So yeah, that's it. That's my spiel for that.
Well, I mean, so I just want to create kind of a list for myself.
Sure.
So I think for the next time, we'll pull sustainability from beliefs just for now, but make sure it's reflective in at least the operational side of the focus areas? Or do we want it to be a fifth focus area?
I think the way Kristen had framed it, where sustainability can be a belief. I mean, it needs to be framed, the language needs to be framed like a belief.
Okay.
It can be a belief, and then it gets plugged in to those different goals, like the operational goal.
Right.
Or the academic excellence goal, where it comes up in curriculum and,
Or even the
stuff like
culture of
that.
care, like
Yeah,
Meredith's point, if it's
100%.
something that students feel strongly about. Because I feel like we do talk about this idea of culture of care, and it does feel very top down. And I think I like the idea of kids having agency and things sort of bubbling up so they can identify like what a problem they want to solve in the world, and having respect for that. Mm-hmm. And then also I think thinking about adults really listening to them and how we measure that, like the idea of these, I mean, we've seen like flickers of this where kids come and they want a specific club or they want something. And it's definitely the civic readiness is like kind of part of that, but it would be, you know, nice to, like, if it's something that's student driven, that there's like kind of a pathway where it's like, this is something that's important to the board in this way, like whether it's academic or cultural or whatever, that they have a path to sort of doing that and looking at it, not just as something coming down to them, but bubbling up to
Right.
the kids.
And yeah, not to jump ahead to that one, but talking with Brian and Corey, I think what this, it's very qualitative, but what we want to do for surveying kids this year, or students, is have a lot of it be open-ended with them asking us things, like, so we can kind of respond to issues, right? Like the open-ended nature of the phone survey, the cell phone ban survey, whatever we called it, like the large number of students that filled that out, and there was like a lot of feelings put into that, and we want to expand that, right? Because the principals all looked at that and looked at what the kids were saying, and so. But anyway, I'm not trying to jump ahead to that, but that in terms of like a metric. So, just for the next 2 board meetings, what I was thinking is before we, is that I haven't quite figured out the schedule, but that like Saggy and Heather go a little bit more in depth into their areas. John and Anne Marie also. I'm saying them because I think it might be like a split that makes sense, that 2 go on one night and 2 go on the other, and we can kind of get like roll up our sleeves a little bit more in the details of that. But I thought tonight we just wanted to kind of capture, like, this is the bulk of like the actions or initiatives that we're doing this year, which the first area is the culture of care focus area. The elementary folks have really done a lot of great work around merging Positivity Project and Responsive Classroom. Teachers from Sargent this year presented at the Positivity Project National Conference. We had the other principals attend that, so it wasn't just folks from Sargent going. They've been using that state grant, the school improvement grant, to go from Sargent. Our goal next year is we can maybe send just a handful more to that, but the main work of the teachers and the principals is taking these 2 initiatives over the last. Responsive Classroom was really about 7 years ago, and Positivity Project was really just like 2 or 3 years ago, like really trying to merge the 2, and they found it's like a really nice, like, Responsive Classroom needs like a curriculum part, really. So like, the big initiative there is like that merge, right? We've put a lot of effort into getting Positivity Project off the ground. So we have some teachers that have become real experts on how they incorporate the 2 things together. And so that's our goal, with this for this year, is our action or initiative. And I can get a little muddled on the language too, but like, is that we really work with the elementary teachers in merging this, through professional development and whatnot. And again, I was just trying to kind of focus on new things with this. Like, there's been a lot of stuff that's gone on at Rombout. This is not so much like a school staff program, but we have this year the Astor mental health services that will be housed in the building. That's something that Heather put together for this upcoming year. I think Bright is supposed to be all lowercase, but that's my mistake at Beacon High School. The Bright program we talked about during the budget cycle. One of the social workers will be the main head for that. It's a program that helps students either transition back to school from, out of district settings like hospitals, but it also helps students transition into school who are having some, struggles with attending or, coming in. And so I see a really other big part of the culture of care is that sustained support for our extracurricular activities, K to 12. This is something that's really hard to track in a way that compares us with other districts, but just a sense of like knowing what other districts do. We have far more students K-12 involved in extracurricular activities than probably just about any district around here. The reason that puts us over the edge with that is what we're doing at the elementary level with getting kids involved with after school stuff. So that's just things for this year. So like what we were going to, when we get in the more detailed stage of this, we were going to just sort of lay out. I don't like to create things that are 50 pages long because it just, I've been doing this for a long time. When I started as a principal 24 years ago. And, you know, we've been making plans for those 24 years, and a lot of time, right, it becomes like the binder, or at least when I started, we were doing binders 24 years ago. So we don't want it to be that, but we know more details needed for
One
this.
thing I would just say for detail is not to add like a ton, because I was thinking like Aster, I know that was mentioned, I'd love a definition. I don't know if you can do hyperlinks in these things, but.
Our goal with this is that it's living on the website.
Okay,
we
so
can
you
just
could put
link away.
hyperlinks. But I think also just to, like, I'm thinking about other newer board members, and it's like, I remember we had, like, when Responsive Classroom was onboarded, and how many people have been trained in it, and it was a big push. So even just putting when it was introduced, like even the year it was introduced, so there's a sense of like, this is something that we're building on, this is how, like, just because it looks like these are sort of equal, like Positivity Project and Responsive Classroom, but if we're sort of showing like, this is new, this is ongoing, that sort of thing.
Like a little bit of backstory.
Yeah, and then
Background.
I don't know if like it's desirable to anybody else, but then I think one thing that I always feel like we don't always do is like kind of do like an analysis after of things, like we put goals forward, and I think like anything that you decide didn't work is like just as valid to say like we, like even just hearing that Responsive Classroom really needs a curriculum component, like that, and that's where the Positivity Project can build on it, like that gives a kind of richer sense of depth. So I don't know if there's things that we don't keep, and deciding not to continue to invest in things is just as important in a fiscal.
And I know I'm just kind of like, I also want to say like, this isn't like a get your thoughts in, before my watch battery died today, so I need to stop looking at my watch. But before 8 o'clock, because it's getting locked in. So if you have thoughts beyond tonight, like we're going to revisit all these as we go through this year, this fall. Academic excellence, like, so I'm just clicking through quickly just to show, like, we have, I tried to sort of, like, this is obviously, the largest part of what we do in many ways. It's why we're all here. So I tried to take a lot of information and just have it be, at least for now, on these 3 slides. So there's a lot of supporting thing here. Saggy, I was wondering if you could just do like a quick overview of these 2 slides up there. And then Heather, I'm going to call you in a second for yours.
So the literacy. So last year, we started the implementation of the HMH interreading program, first with grades 3 to 5. We started with grades 3 to 5 because that was the grade level that we felt, based on our data, had the most urgency. We really wanted to focus on small group instruction. Now, while we do have small class sizes across the district, one of the things that we've been focusing on is a lot of small group instruction, because what research has said is that in addition to small class sizes, what actually has the most student impact is small group instruction. So we've been focusing on small group instruction and teacher efficacy, because again, research has shown that teacher efficacy actually has higher impact on student achievement than anything else. So we've been doing a lot of work around professional development, making sure that our teachers, when they have students in small groups, they actually are doing a lot of explicit strategies with our students, making sure that when they are in those small groups, that they're actually teaching explicit reading strategies to our students. So we're focusing a lot on reading. In K2, we were doing the Foundations program, which you see up there, a lot of foundations in 3 to 5. Our data was showing that we needed more still of that phonics instruction. Interreading had a phonics component to it, which is why we selected Interreading, because of all the reading programs that we had vetted, it was the only one that actually had a component that was the most aligned to the science of reading. There is no such thing as the best reading program out there. This was the most aligned to the science of reading, which is why we selected it. This year, it's going down to K2, so we have full alignment in K5 of one reading program. One of the things that we were also doing last year that we are continuing was that we were also working on the literacy briefs in grades 6 through 12, because literacy is K-12. So we were really focusing on that we are all teachers of literacy in K-12, which is something that is, most people think that literacy only happens at the elementary level, which is not true. Everyone teaches literacy across all content area because we teach vocabulary in all the content areas. So last year, if you recall, our goal was vocabulary acquisition across all the content areas. That was our goal. This year, we're going to continue that, but our goal is going to be around math instruction because our data right now is embargoed. So I can't show you our New York State data until the embargo has lifted. I will say that we did a lot of improvement in literacy, so I'm very excited. I can't wait to show you that. We do have to focus on math, so we'll talk about that. But we are going to continue to still push literacy, even though we've shown tremendous improvement. Again, Wilson, we are continuing our Wilson in our upper elementary, because Wilson is a program specifically designed for the upper elementary student. Foundations is more for our K2 students. So Wilson, the full Wilson program is for our 4 and 8. Just Words, we're going to have some teachers trained in Just Words. Just Words is a offset of Wilson, which is for your older student that missed some of those skills in the lower elementary level, and it's a little bit more sophisticated than Foundations. Foundations is fun, is a multisensory phonics program, but you know, in 4th, 5th grade, 6th and 7th grade, they don't want to do the tapping. You know, they don't want to do the owl, they'll throw it at you. So they want something a little bit more sophisticated, but it does a lot, it focuses a lot on vocabulary, it does a lot of syllabication, so it does those skills that they're missing, but at a more sophisticated level. So we're looking at having a teacher at each of the schools trained in Just Words and creating a Just Words group for those students that need it, particularly at the middle school. Because we know that we have a group of kids that's going up to the middle school that may need that support. So we added also a literacy specialist that's going to be working with our teachers. So this is going to be a coach. So this person's not going to be working with students, but it's going to be working on that teacher efficacy. So working on really those tier 1 explicit instruction, making sure that our teachers, when they're in the classroom, that they are supporting students, particularly in small group instruction. So that's a real goal that we have. We want to see small groups happening, not just in reading, but also in math. So we want math to look like the reading block. So when we walk into classrooms, when teachers do a lesson, there should be small groups going on in math as well. So they're also getting that explicit instruction. Did we go into math? So math, last year we did start in the math department the Thinking Buildings classroom. So that is a model of instruction that is going on. So we did start in 6th through 8th grade at Roundabout, and we did it as a book study. So it's a model of instruction where students are engaged, where you're going deep into the conceptual models of the math program, as opposed to doing a bunch of math problems in a worksheet. You're actually doing less of the math problems and going deeper into the conceptual knowledge. And the students are actually working together in the class in order to kind of develop the problems. The high school actually also did it as a book study. So this year, they're going to continue working with BOCES, where they're going to continue that model. So it's actually going to be 6-12. We do have a math specialist that's now in all of the elementary schools, because we were sharing last year. We feel that we really needed someone in each of the elementary buildings. When I go over the data, you're going to see that we are in need of someone at each of the elementaries. We also need someone to support the middle school. So again, math is going to be an area that we're going to need some support this year. We do need to support our students in math. Science, we are fully implemented in Science 21. We did go up in our math, in our science scores as well in 5th and 8th grade, so that's going to be nice to see. We have full investigation labs going on, not just in 6th through 8th grade, but also in grades 3, 4, and 5. That's something that is required by the state. But with Science 21, we have full hands-on lessons that go on in K through 8 across the district, which is nice to see, which is going to support us in the Portrait of a Graduate. So you know New York State did adopt Portrait of a Graduate. It looks a little bit different than the first presentation I gave you back in the fall. So it's been kind of redesigned. Hopefully I'll have an opportunity to kind of show you the new inspiration for the Portrait of a Graduate, since the Regents exams are going to be completely decoupled in 2027. So we are going to be working on that. Again, we have our literacy specialist that's going to be working with teachers. We are going to continue with our RTI MTSS specialist that's going to be working with our teachers in Tier 1 support in math. So we're going to have basically a math coach and a literacy coach. We are continuing our universal screeners in K-5 so that we have progress monitoring that's going on across all our grade levels. And at the middle school, we are going to be piloting DIBELS in 6th through 8th grade. So there's going to be a higher concentration of support at the middle school this year. So the RTI MTSS coach will be working with the middle school as well in order to make sure that our MTSS RTI model is actually at a K-8 model this year. And we are also, I forgot to tell Matt to put it on the slide, but there is going to be a pilot intervention group at 9th grade at the high school. So there's an HMH program called Math and Reading 180 that we are piloting at the high school. So we're selected about 30 rising 9th graders that we've identified as needing extra support. So currently AIS was basically kind of more of a test prep for students that did not pass the Regents exam. We wanted to do something a little bit different and have it be more of a support for students that needed support in really reading and math skills. So we piloted this for 9th grade. So we're hoping that it's more like a real intervention model that you have in your traditional K-8.
So I'm going to interrupt just for a second. So the question I'm going to ask the board, and you don't have to answer it tonight fully, is what do you need from us? Like we just provided like a quick kind of verbal overview. What do you need from us, both like sort of by the end of September, but also throughout the year that makes this, I didn't have this question written down. I'm just kind of like, that makes this that you understand it, that it makes sense, that we feel like there's a level of accountability with it. Like, is it, well, I don't want to start answering it. Like, what are just some initial thoughts there?
So I think back to last year, the goal of the increased vocabulary. And you're saying the scores went up. That's wonderful. It's hard to measure, I'm sure, especially at the secondary level. I mean, I would like to see some examples of how teachers were doing that. So how was a social studies 9 teacher trying to increase vocabulary within their classroom, or how is a 6th grade math teacher doing that? I know some of the principals mentioned that in their presentations, but I do remember you mentioning that as a goal. And so when I think back to your question, if, whether we're talking about a coach or a specialist or Science 21, whatever we choose, I think just to show that there's some traction in some of these goals, and to just, this is what the teachers are really doing in the classroom to support the goals that we're putting on the screen. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, actually, to your question, so in terms of vocabulary acquisition, there needed to be evidence in the classroom. So for example, there needed to be word walls. There needed to be whether the kids had word bank books. So actually, when I walked into a classroom, when the principal walked into a classroom, there needed to be some kind of evidence that vocabulary was being taught. In addition, they were given a model of how to teach vocabulary. So in the Beacon City School District, the way we teach vocabulary is that the teachers are to explicitly give the definition. So it's none of this, tell me what do you think the word means? No. You give an explicit definition. The students are to then, after the word is defined, they're supposed to give an example, a non-example, and then they give a sentence or a picture, depending on the grade level of the student.
So just going back to your question, though.
How we teach vocabulary
Got
in
it.
Beacon.
You know, sometimes I can summarize incorrectly, but like, you want us painting more of a picture in a sense of what it looks like in a classroom, like what this work looks like in a classroom.
So, yeah, so my thinking is that if these are the goals, and the principal is presenting, and I know sometimes they may be presenting in November as compared to April, right? But I would think that that would be part of the presentation, right? If that's our goal, then show me a word wall, or show me multiple word walls, right? If we're supposed to be doing word walls, so that it just shows us that
Right.
we're doing that. Not that we're not, I'm not saying that.
Right.
But that, to me, would just show that we're working towards the goal that we're putting on the screen.
Having each principal be able to articulate the work, but also show it in some way in those presentations.
Exactly.
And that makes sense. And the reason that I chose, that the vocabulary was chosen, because that's actually a standard. So that was a strand. That
It's a
when
great
we look
choice.
at our data, we were able to actually look at our, at our testing, because one of the reports that you're able to see, you're able to see the itemized questions, and you're able to see which of the questions the majority of students got correct and which of the ones that they got incorrect. And that was one of the things that we noticed across all content areas, was that vocabulary was an issue. So now, based on our data, I'm able to go back and see, I'm like, oh, it seems like we did better in vocabulary. So it was a teaching goal that impacted then our student data.
Correct.
So they was able to make that connection. So
I
it
get
was-
that.
We wanted to choose something that actually, it was around pedagogy, that was gonna actually have student impact.
Right.
Which is why, again, we're focusing on teacher efficacy that's gonna impact student achievement,
Right.
which is why we try to choose a goal that's actually about what the teacher does, so then supports what students are learning, but we can, again,
I think
most
you
certainly do something like that where we're actually showing evidence of that.
Yeah, I think you just spelled it out really well. It's like we identify the problem through data or another way. This is how we're solving the problem, like this is how we're teaching the kids, approaching it. And then here's what we're seeing. We're trending in the right direction. This is working. But I think we haven't, to now, we have not merged those stories. And I think it for, as a non-educator, that feels like a really easy to understand story. That would be very powerful for us and for the public to hear.
Merging data with what we're,
With the way we're responding to the
Okay.
data, and then the results of the response.
Right.
Then I think the one thing that I do think the principal presentations are always great and really enlightening, but they're definitely feel like telling the story of your school, best foot forward, which should be a very positive. And I don't want to take away from that, but then at the end, this all filters up to kids going into the same middle school, the same high school. So the grade is across. So that idea of having a presentation at the end where you talk about, this is what we implement, this is a problem we identified, this is what we implemented, this is how teachers solved for it, and this is what happened across the district and how they did that, then it would feel like there's some continuity to it as well, and it would be kind of a story per grade, and then, even just, and I don't want to press on a bruise, especially because the data is embargoed, but it's the kind of you keep saying and math we need to work on, but it's I do think laying that out on the table and having a very frank discussion, I think the principals, it puts them in a tricky position, especially if there's different schools having that conversation, because then it feels a little bit like it's on them, but if it's going towards an overall goal of academic excellence, then you want to say like, we just realized everyone's struggling with, decimals, or everyone was struggling with this skill. This is what we're doing about it. And then this is the story at the end. Like if there's a tie back at the end of the year, because the principal presentations are early and they feel like they're there for a different purpose, but they put data in there. It's just that when Cassandra's presenting about Glenham and their data, then I'm sort of like, okay, but like what's happening?
Right.
It's really one story.
So this is just a logistical question. I don't have to have the answer now, but we talk about this with the principals every year, and some of them ask, "Can we do it later in the year?" Because then we can talk kind of about this year in a richer way instead of just what we've just started working on. And so we don't have to get into that now, but Kristen, you saying that just kind of a couple of principals asked when we
Yeah.
met the other day.
I think the principal story the building story is different than the district data story.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
I do like the idea of like for these proofs basically of us meeting our goals, there's like this problem, plan, action, outcome frame that we're kind of putting around each of them. So it tells a story even if you're not a teacher, you understand what's happening. And it does, toward what you were saying, it's helpful to put it in this context because then you're not trying to pull the information from different presentations. It's sort of like all that data is consolidated into one thing that's related to our goals, which is super
And they're not presenting it
powerful.
always in a uniform way.
Right.
So you're like,
Right.
You're doing 3 through whatever in this one, but then the other one focused on second grade, and so it just always feels a bit
But I think-
fragmented.
I do think that you did a really good job last year of pulling out the idea of like, okay, vocabularies are focused.
Yeah.
This is why,
Totally.
For sure.
this is from looking at the data. So I think it's just really building on that. Like, okay, where
100%.
did we go with that? How did that go?
And I think I want to answer your question, Matt, with a different thought too, which is a lot of this conversation feels very like zoomed in to me, which is good, right? There's a problem, so let's solve it. Like vocabulary, like a math curriculum, which is great. I think something that I'm missing is like zooming out. Like, what does it mean for elementary students to be ready for middle school? Like, what does that mean? And like, are they? And then what does it mean for middle school students to be ready for high school? And sort of like, are they? And what does it mean for high school students to be ready for post-secondary? And I feel like I'm missing a lot of that post-secondary story, especially. And then when we zoom out, like obviously vocabulary, literacy, this is all part of what it means to be ready. But like, are they ready? And how we think about that and how do we sort of paint that picture? Because if we're too zoomed into like problem, solution, it can be like a little bit of whack-a-mole unless there's like a really clear vision about what it means to be ready for middle school or ready for high school or ready for post-secondary. So
I will say to that point, one of the reasons that we try to select a goal that's K-12 is because we're all on the same page, because something, example, for like vocabulary, you would need that for a portrait of a graduate. So again, we're thinking about when the child walks across the stage. So for example, in math, there are strands. So I know the data's embargo, but I can tell you right now, I'm looking at algebraic expression. So that's an area that I can tell you that we need to focus on. And algebraic expression is something that is taught K-12. Now, obviously, the way it's taught in kindergarten is very different than the way it is taught in third grade, than the way it's taught in sixth grade, and the way it's taught in ninth grade. But it's something that is taught across all different grade levels. And in terms of life, research has shown that kids who do not take algebra, right, means that those kids are less likely to go to college. Those kids who do not take algebra and then are less likely to go to college actually economically impacts them more, right?
yeah,
than-
and you're talking to an algebra teacher too. It's
Right,
like
right.
I'm
So
with
you
you
know this, right? The
100%. but, like,
disparities, so-
but they're two different views. I
Right,
think
so
The
there's that,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Like the district view is like algebraic expression, great. K-12, I totally get that. Again, vocabulary, I agree, great goal. I think like there's another question in addition to that, not instead of that. Like I think I totally understand why there's the focus of like, I don't even know, as after a board member sitting here for 1 year, if our students take algebra in 8th grade or 9th grade, or if we have an opinion about that, or how many of them take it. So like there are all these questions about like, what does it mean zooming out to be ready for high school? That's not a K-12 question. That's like are the students ready for high school, and like how well are we doing on that? So again, I think the work about picking a united theme for the whole district is great, and I think you're making good recommendations for it. I'm just trying to answer your question, Matt, about like what do I need to hear?
Right.
And it's yes, like what is that kind of specific goal, problem focus,
Yep.
and it's like the zoomed out. What do we just hope is true for our students,
Right.
and are we meeting that like as they? Because that's more of a building question, because like the building should be driving towards that goal, even as they're all working on vocabulary, all working on algebra, or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's something that would help me, is understanding what does it mean to be ready for the next building or for post-secondary, and how well are we doing? And like Kristen's saying, not just the sort of bright spots, but also like where the struggle is there at a level, and what are we sort of doing about it?
I also think there's room to be really honest about what we don't know. Because I think, like, as somebody who has a high school student right now, I don't know really the world we're preparing them for exactly. So, like, I do feel like you hit, like, skill-based things that do make a lot of sense. And I do think, like, what Ready for High School is, like, is very clear. But then I think, given a diverse population, like, a real discussion about post-high school, what we're preparing them for and how that happens, and just really, again, because it sometimes does feel like a highlight reel, like we get the valedictorian and we get the salutatorian, we put which colleges kids are going to, but I do think that like there's a whole community, and really how we're intentionally thinking about all those students and what their life will look like is, and also being honest where it's like, we're preparing them for something that looks like this, but we're figuring out something else as well. Like, I do think that, like, the changes, you've done a really good job of doing that with the changes on the Regents level. And I think we've all lived through the pain of this summer with, like, the different regents that people were quite upset about, and the changes that happened. So I think that there's, even just reporting on that has been really helpful to hear about, and the shifts towards, sorry, yeah.
And this is just an action, but I think it's kind of getting to what both of you are saying. Like, so we have this teachers are in the process of applying to be a part of the graduation standards committee, and maybe we'll kind of give it a better title than that, or the portrait of a graduate committee. But we have teachers from all levels being a part of that. It's not like a group of high school teachers. Like, and I think my ultimate goal, and I'm sure the state's goal, and the people on the Blue Ribbon were thinking the same thing. Like, we do want a kindergarten teacher thinking about that, right? Like, we want a 5th grade teacher thinking about that. So to me, it's not like the solution, but when we start developing like goals for this group, I think it's starting to flesh out what you're talking about. Like, what does a successful 5th grader look like getting ready for 6th, and so on and so forth. Anthony, I saw you cue up your mic like 15 minutes ago. Like, good. You did like you bent it, sort of slowly towards you, but I I want to do a quick time check. I'd love to kind of get through so maybe we do this for like another half an hour or so. Does that sound doable?
That's fair.
Or less or whatever? But like, I want to just kind of go through each of these and do just that verbal overview, and then have you kind of respond less with, you're doing great, by the way, less with like programmatic sort of questions, and more like, how will this work for us? Like, what do we need to see? Right, what do we need from me or the team or the principals? Like, that's super helpful. So I'm just going to switch over to the PPS side of academic excellence.
Right. So thank you. I'm going to hope to explain and then also talk about metrics, what it looks like to measure it, and then I'm looking for feedback from you as to what that might look like. So we have set 3 different goals, and they're up there on the screen. Expanding integrated co-teaching at the elementary level. So previously, we didn't have co-teaching at every grade level at the elementary. So the students who needed that level of support might need to go to a different building, which made specifically Glenham house most of the students who need integrated co-teaching. So over the years, this year as we start, every building at the elementary level has integrated co-teaching except for one grade level at each building. So for example, at Sargent, they don't have it at 3rd grade. At Glenham, they don't have it at 5th. JVF, it's not at 2nd, and South, it's not at 3rd. But one of the intentional planning that we did, we met with the principals regularly this past year to talk about where to prioritize, where they felt we should really be focusing, and they really expressed kindergarten and first. So a special education teacher has been assigned in every building at kindergarten and first. The only time that they leave that learning environment is if a student might have a resource room or a consultant teacher, but they don't plan with a different grade. So for example, 2nd might be working with 3rd with 4th, but kindergarten and first, they're staying in that curriculum and in that grade level. So some of the metrics that to look at the expansion and how effective it is. So we're looking at, I had mentioned in my budget proposal for you all, bringing in additional training so that we could expand our station teaching and parallel teaching, because now the teachers are learning in a different way and delivering the instruction in a different way. So I've worked with the union. We've talked about creating a survey. It's already created, and giving it out 3 times to get feedback on their understanding of the co-teaching models. What does success look like for them? So it can be real feedback. You know, this is what they're saying on question number 1. This is what they're saying on question number 2. There are some open-ended. So where you do a Likert scale, you know, I strongly agree, neutral, disagree. So that gives you an easy metric, but we're also looking for the feedback on what professional development do you need to continue to have, or what additional support do you need. So just really looking at targeted interventions for integrated co-teaching as comparative to maybe the general education side as well. You know, what additional supports do the general education teachers who may not have a special education teacher in that classroom also need? Because we're looking at it holistically, not just 2nd grade at a specific grade, a specific building. So the other is including physical spaces that reflect and support diverse learning needs. So we've received feedback about different space design. So there are some classrooms you walk into and it's in your rows, and there's some that you walk into that are kind of in like quads or 6 together. There's some that have quiet corners, or some that don't. You know, it's very dependent on the teacher at this point. Now I will say we're moving more and more into that inclusive space in the actual environment. You see wobble chairs, you see crates, you see, you know, they're all different. But I had received feedback from you about what that visually looks like. So getting information right from the very beginning of the school year about, you know, with pictures, about this is what it looks like here. An example would be Rombau. It's the first year this year that they will have a sensory room in the building. So this past year, we worked an entire year to try to get that. It required, you know, swings and mats and space and moving, and like there are a lot of movement had to happen to make it into a central space. Because when a child needs that level of support, you don't want to take them very far away. You want it to be as accessible to them as possible. So we're looking at that, creating visual space pictures so that you can see the visual spaces. And then increase student access to general education by implementing regular push and support sessions across all grades. Backing up for 1 second, I failed to mention that at Rombau this past year, I had delivered a survey to all of Rombau, every teacher, called Together We Thrive, Inclusion Insights, and I was looking for information from the teachers regarding where they saw inclusive practices and how to expand. We got a lot of information back. I was overwhelmed with like all the teachers saying this is what we should do. So we built a group of 5 to 6 teachers, general education and special education. You approved, it'll start this year. I'll be meeting with them monthly. And then the goal is to incorporate students in that work so that they tell us where they want to, with the idea of like clubs and sports and the lunchroom and all the other spaces where children are potentially that are less structured. And then back to what I was saying about regular push and support. one of the things that is inherent when you have a student who has special needs is they might have additional related services. And traditionally, those services have been in a pull-out model. They're in the classroom and they come out for speech and they come out for OT and they come out for PT. So I've been tracking, it's called time out of regular class, how long they're spending out of that class. We have over 4 years, the schedules for every child in every space, and we calculate that with the related service providers. And so this past year, going into this year, we talked about writing those documents in a way that they were more inclusive, so the child stays in the environment and the provider goes to them. One of the barriers is that if you have a second grader and a first grader in your group together, you have to be really strategic right off the scheduling to make sure that it's second graders you're working with in a group and first graders you're working with in a group, because of the accessibility in the classroom. So again, that's measurable. It's a metric that can be measured, so we can get hard feedback about this is the percentage of time that children are in or out of their class. So I'm looking for feedback from you regarding, does that seem like a deliverable? Is there something different you're looking for?
I have one question about once, just as I think because you're saying across all grade levels.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me K through 5, but I feel like if it's a child who's in general ed classes in middle school and they need additional services, I think that sometimes one of their fears is being different. And so then
Yes.
having a OT come
Into the room.
into the room and to be like, when they already think everyone's
Yes.
looking at them.
That's
Like,
right.
is there like I don't know. I just am curious about what that looks like.
So it's a little bit easier, I would say, with occupational therapy, because when the provider goes in, she tends to work collaboratively around the student. So it's not just you are working with me.
Right.
It's like, we're going to try this strategy as a group.
Right.
And we're also doing that with the little ones, as a whole group. Let's use a slant board to see if it, let's
Right.
use a tracer. Let's see if that. But you're right. Older they get, they would prefer to leave their environment quietly with a pass to go to the service that they need. So it's individualized for every student.
Right.
Yeah, but that's a good point. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, just to go back to the feedback you gave on the first part of this, I think it would make sense that we have principals also talk about this, right, in their presentations. That was part of, right? We want anything else in terms of like more information, not tonight, but that you want us bringing to flesh this out, besides like some details about measuring and some steps. And again, this doesn't have to be solved tonight.
I personally feel like, I'm going to have to think about it a little more before I'm prepared to say, this is what I'm looking for.
I'll just say one thought that I don't actually know if like building specific reports would be helpful here. Like for me, when there's an initiative that's cross-district, it's actually helpful to hear about it cross-district. And maybe in some cases, seeing like how it is showing up in that specific building is helpful.
Okay.
But if not, just like the data was sort of like in different formats, we were talking about that. Like sometimes it's hard to track if there are a lot of different things happening in different schools. Have we heard about this? Is there differences? So I think it would be helpful to hear some of these things specifically from building principals, but maybe not all. And to me, these are 3 like very clear goals, and it seems like they would apply across the district. And so hearing about them at a district level to me would be even more helpful, since I assume that you're doing this work in each of the buildings and probably have
And
data
so like
and
the survey that I've
examples.
created to deliver to them is anonymous. It identifies by building, and it doesn't come directly to me, it'll come to someone else, so that it's authentic information that we're getting, because that's where growth comes from. But, the goal is that we see more diverse educational experiences across all spaces.
Thank you.
I talked about the graduation standards committee, or the portrait of a graduate committee. We'll probably switch to that. AI task force is similar. We'll have teachers from all of our buildings, not just high school and middle school. Metrics, Sagi's going to do a presentation about data in September, and I'll move this slide till then. Do we have it in us to just go over the last couple? Yeah? Okay. I'm just checking my order here. Anne Marie, if you could just talk about fiscal and facilities, and then John, you come up and, so you're not going up and down. I'll do the slides when you're done here. Okay.
So on the fiscal side, and we've been doing the internal, external audit correction plans, but we started this year by doing a status update. So not just the audit correction active plan that you vote on after the audit, but that either through the facilities committee and then the full board, where we are periodically as we're going through. Same thing with the internal audit. Development of long-range fiscal planning, utilizing what was formerly Forecast 5 is now Frontline, learning more about their reports, trying to maximize the revenue side of, we had contracted with a company to maximize our interest income. We found that we can actually do it through our current people and not pay someone. So, we're going to continue with that kind of strategy going forward, knowing that state aid is going to be a challenge, knowing that our costs are going up. So just actually trying to figure out how to pay for everything, basically. And
With this one, specifically to what Anne Marie's saying, I want to have some conversations in this room, so, public around generating like a three-year of no increase in state aid. Like, what does that look like for 3 years in a row? Like, I just want to start, us mentally preparing for that, more than mentally preparing, like actually preparing for that, but the board, the community, I think I think that is a possibility, something like that. And so not to be all, negative with this one, but like to me, like we've talked about this a lot, like we've kind of always done year by year, and I really want to start at least, not that we're making decisions like 3 years out, but that we can see like some worst case scenarios or not as good scenarios are for us, and we just get a sense of that in terms of positions. Like I want to do a better job of, I think I said a few times last spring, like we really like, when we roll something out, we don't like to have to pull it back. And so we know we still want to try to investigate doing like a 9-period day at the middle school, right? But in that planning, I want to lay out like some of these worst case scenarios to see like what do we think is possible here. And the actual audit report is October.
yeah, October 6th. So it'd be an audit committee prior to the board meeting and then an adoption on October 6th.
So then on the facility side.
So the governor did push the requirement ban out, but we were lucky enough to have our voters vote on 2 electric buses, so just kind of a little bit of an update. The chargers for the electric buses were delivered today, so we were very excited. We have a contractor to actually get them installed. We need data that's run to that building. As you know, our buses are inside a facility. So we are planning to put both electric bus chargers inside the facility in a strategic place, and then test it out as it goes. So just for planning purposes, between now and maybe the next week or so, we're going to get the chargers installed. They need to be commissioned, so they need to be reviewed, and then the electric buses could be delivered. And the thought was, the plan was that it was going to be towards the end of September, so we're kind of right on schedule for that. We've done a lot of speaking with the transportation folks in general. So the head bus mechanic is really excited about it. The bus company actually comes and does the training for the auto mechanics, for the drivers, and then there's a component where they have to train the companies, because it's a different way of fighting a fire, God forbid, one of the batteries were to go. So the 2 electric buses can be up and running and operational
If we move forward with more than that, and that would be a plan and a discussion we would have with the board, a capital project would have to be developed to actually convert the bus garage and the buses periodically into chargers, because each bus needs a charger inside. There'll be some infrastructure that needs to be done. We talked to them about having some outside charging, which would be behind where the bus garage facility is. So there's a lot of unanswered questions, but kind of exciting that we're going to actually see them. We've talked about them for the last 2 to 3 years, so now they're actually coming. So, and the streamlined facility, last was the streamlined facility use process. So we do have an online process. It's probably not functioning exactly the way we would like it to do. We're going to change the process of having more of a central office focus at the beginning to make sure that outside organizations are using it in conjunction with school organizations and making it the best for the whole process. Right now, there's a lot of people doing the processes, and we need to kind of really streamline that a little bit more and take control back a little bit.
So I'm going to just mention one thing with facilities use. Besides streamlining the process, we want to make sure that obviously that we're taking care of our facilities. They're not being overused, but we want to make sure our community is able to use it. It brings me great joy to see different things that taxpayers spend money on being used by the public outside of school time. I love that our track is positioned where it is, that people are always using it, playgrounds, etc. One thing that I am going to head up some sort of community gathering of input on is the use of the pool. So we are one of the few schools in this region that has a pool. In every capital project presentation and every capital project we do, we're doing something to repair or sustain that. And I want to look at ways that more of our kids can use it outside of the school day. Families can use it. Like we're going to go on that journey this year to see, like, it's not going to be totally free what we can offer, but like what people would be willing to pay for, who we can partner with to do this. There's like lots of questions. Not going to get deeply into it tonight, but that's one that I think, we are supporting as a community. I want the community to be able to use more. It's a big one for me this year. In terms of metrics for this, I sort of like, there's sort of a sense of like, the business office generates different metrics throughout the year. But one of the things I really want to see, and I already mentioned it, is just that we have some really long range, like financial, like planning type, like seeing like in different what if scenarios and how that impacts us long range. And also, Kristen, you brought up energy usage and like cost of energy right now. So we want to work with Jesse to start tracking that too. But for this, not beyond, but like anything for us to look at here and think about.
It's really cool.
They're going to come back. HR. Thanks, Emery.
How we doing, folks? So we've had a busy summer, and what we basically been trying to do is kind of expedite the processes that we have been doing and make it a little bit simpler for all the stakeholders to have access to it. More specifically, the principals and the department heads. So what we've been doing is looking at exactly what we need to be done and how we can organize it, how we can archive it, and how we can align with what the state is requiring us to do, and specifically the onboarding and the offboarding. So what we've done is created a new onboarding process that basically streamlines what's happening and when it's happening, and how we're gathering the materials, the certifications, the board action forms, everything else through Teach and accounts, and we are archiving that, and then we're able to successfully onboard the person, having all the materials instead of having to go back and forth, find things such as letters of recommendations or phone references and whatnot. So we basically created a package for people to give to us that we can archive in their files so that we have it for years to come. Starting in the middle of September, we're going to transition to the school front process. So right now we use OLAS, and that's great. We are going to move to going to Schoolfront, and the main reason is that we can archive all of those documents, and basically the applicant can upload those documents into that before we even go ahead to move through with processing. So it's basically an expedited system that we're going to use. It is a new format for our administrators and department heads for them to do that, but it's really one-stop shopping. All of the people at central office who need to take care of these materials will have that right there. So instead of trying to chase people down and find things, we can't proceed until the applicant actually uploads all those files into the system. For offboarding, we've created a process, and a couple of years ago through that audit report, that was one thing that we were lacking here, is making sure that we're offboarding and doing things the correct way when it came down to technology access, security access, collecting badges, collecting keys. We've created a district exit survey report for all applicants. Once they leave the district, they can give feedback in regards to their experience here at Beacon, or they can actually do an exit interview if they would choose to do so. We just figured that doing the actually survey might be a little bit easier to gather that information for them. So we just rolled that out a couple weeks ago. We've only had one person resign since then, but it's something that's been shared with all the administrators and department heads and it's quite simple. It's a nice online form, and basically once the first line of defense, let's say it's the building principal, gets that, they provide dates when the person is going to be resigning, when they have to have their technology taken away, and then it actually moves on to the next phase. It goes to the technology department, they mark down everything that they need to do, then it goes to security, then it goes to facilities to check their areas, collect all the information, or excuse me, all the equipment that they may have. So now it's a one-stop shopping document that we can collect, put in their file, make sure the person's out of the district. So it's a nice organized process, and the hope is that the state's going to see this as a formal process that we have in place when someone does leave the district. So that's kind of rolled out. Hopefully there's not too many more resignations or anything, but for right now, we're going in the right direction. A couple other things that we've been doing, more specifically from the operational side, is how we can do some of our processes better. One thing that we're currently looking at are our field trip requests. So right now, it was basically forms of paper going back and forth to figure out, can transportation actually do this? Does a nurse have to go on a trip? Are the dates available? Are the times available? We've actually utilized our ML schedule format, and that's the way the administrators actually reserve spaces in the school, the cafeteria for an event, a gym for a function. So it's the same reservation process, basically. So now they can go into that. They can click on field trips and start inputting the information, and automatically when that's input, that goes to transportation to give the yay or nay. We can block off times, we can block off days that they're not able to do it, and the same thing with the nurses to make sure if students have IEP and they require nurses, it's kind of automated, so if they block it out and there's no nurses available that day, it'll automatically stop the process and have them choose another date. So once again, just trying to work with operations to make sure that we're kind of expediting things and less paper. It's all online. We can actually print out what we're doing, when we're doing it, and have an expedited report by the end of the school year. Couple other things, we are currently working on an employee handbook. That's something that I'm kind of gathering research from all the other districts, who has it, what do they have in it, what direction we want to go with. That'll be a more formal process that I'm hoping to complete by the end of the year, so that you can see the new employee handbook that each employee in the BCSD will get, hopefully explaining things a little bit easier to them. We're also trying to align civil service numbers with our district employment. We've had resignations that happen throughout the years, and we have open spots that are available, but we necessarily don't need those spots. So we are working with the Dutchess County to kind of remove those spots, to kind of get in line and make sure that we are actually employing who we are saying we are employing. And then also some recruitment and retention initiatives in high-need areas. The plan is to kind of launch some social media type things to gather employees, more specifically for transportation or student aids or health aids. I've seen a lot of nice little blurbs that people send out via social media. Hey, we need bus drivers. What do we pay? This. What's the day like? This. And hopefully to make it a little bit easier process that they can actually click on it, get directed to the HR department, and then we can help them go through the application process just to try to fill some of these high needs areas that we have. And then also trying to have some stakeholder meetings with some of these areas to figure out what we can do better as a district to support them. So we had a meeting last week with the bus drivers, or last week or the week before, just to talk to them, what's your day looking like? How can we support you better? How can we make things easier? Kind of getting their feedback in regards to what we could do better as a district to keep them employed and keep them happy and ultimately be able to service our kids with the best intentions possible. So that's kind of all in motion right now, all of those things. Some are kind of done and some we're just looking at. The field trip thing we're going to launch next week to see how it goes. I don't want to just roll it out to the entire district. I kind of took Corey and took Katie and said, hey, fill out a field trip, let's see how it goes. Fill out a field trip, let's see how it goes. So if we do see any things or any hiccups, we can go ahead and address them before we roll it out blanket to the entire district. Some things for this year, like I mentioned, the employee handbook, continuing to research that. We're going to, in coordination with the teachers union, look at a transfer vacancy coordinated process for the end of the year, just to be able to look at if a teacher is being transferred to another grade, what does that look at, how does that actually affect the opening and where that's going to be, at what grade level and what school. As I mentioned, HR communication via social media. And then trying to really launch some good staff appreciation recognition days. There's some really cool ideas that people have. I mean, if you get the staff member a week, you park in the principal's parking spot and so on and so forth. So just a way to kind of celebrate all the different areas that we have in our district, not just certified educators, but all of our support staff that we have. There's a very long list for paraprofessionals, bus drivers, and aides and monitors, custodians, as you all know. So just trying to figure out a way that we could celebrate them more, get out and give them the recognition that I feel they deserve because they are an integral part of our district. So without going into too much detail, that's kind of what we have on the horizon for this upcoming school year. Any questions or more than open to feedback if you have anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just take a minute on communication. We have a new website. We're working on aligning that. The rollover was a little bit later than we wanted it to be this summer, so we're very engaged with that. We do have a plan with, we work with BOCES on the website, but with having a person in each building support the website alignment, working also with our administrator who gets the district communications support stipend. That's Katie Bjordy. I really want, we've done a lot of great community outreach events. I want some new ones this year, so we're generating a list. We'll have it ready by the end of September, not just from each school, but each department. I'll be doing some new things this year. I will do I'm working with someone to do this, who's an expert in this, but we're going to do a series of Zoom kind of conversations or trainings around parenting in the digital age. And not that I'll be more the facilitator, not the expert, but we have someone who's an expert on that. But sort of each session is geared toward a different grade level or different sort of age levels. I'm also looking to do like a superintendent book club this year. So I use that as an example, just simply because we're just looking with each of our schools and departments. We don't want to throw out the things that are working well, but we want to add some new ways to engage, and then just to keep our high level of communication through newsletter, social media, et cetera, happening.
I like that it's kind of woven throughout, but like what Heather did with the survey of the teachers or the phone survey, things that are also bringing in information, obviously that you can hit a point of fatigue, but hearing about things at board meetings is always really tricky because it's awkward. It's not a give and take kind of environment, and it's helpful to have at least some kind of designating a pathway for intaking information and metabolizing it so that it gets brought to the board about like these are the themes that are emerging. This is what we're hearing about.
Right.
That would be really helpful.
Is that it?
So, Flora, I'll get with you to debrief this. Tomorrow, no, we'll take a little time. And then we'll kind of map out the next couple of meetings. We won't go as long. I kind of wanted to try to get through this, so I appreciate everyone's patience. And we'll do some work to bring some more detail to this, make some changes. Again, looking for like October, some sort of sense of like, here are the board goals / district goals. Okay? Thanks for your patience letting us work through all this tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is super helpful. I'm excited to see where this goes. And I have lost my place in the agenda. Okay, so reviewing the agenda, there are a couple of changes. 14.02 Hayes Day School Contract. The addendum has been removed from the contract. It was an approved program already for placement of students with disabilities, so it doesn't require the 2D addendum that is needed for other third-party contractors. This is according to the district attorney. But then with 16.01, the AON Physical Therapy and Wellness, it now has a data privacy addendum with the Parent Bill of Rights for data privacy and security, as well as supplemental information form that is required under Section 2D of the Education Law. And that is it. So moving on, we have an executive session. Can I get a motion to move to executive session to review the employment history of a particular individual? The board will return in,
We're also discussing negotiations
and contract negotiations. Thank you.
with, do we say the, so with BAOP,
With BAOP, okay. So the board.
with our attorney. Sorry for interrupting.
With our attorney. Okay. What do you think, 45 minutes?
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
that's.
All right, the board will return in about 45 minutes. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
All comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Passes 9-0. The board will return in about 45 minutes. superintendent's report?
I'll be super brief. Tomorrow we have new teacher orientation. We have sixth grade orientation Wednesday and Thursday. All of our staff comes back to get everything ready for the school year. Next Tuesday we have students. Super excited about that. Just want to kind of apologize in a sense for going so long with what we had, but yet I want to thank my team for all jumping up to the microphone and explaining their piece. Our follow-up presentations will be a little bit shorter and tighter because we'll kind of drill down into certain parts of the plan, but thanks for your patience as we work through that. And then just a reminder to board members, Vicki emailed you all something about the NISBA conference or convention in October, late October, in New York City. So just like I don't know who's emailed or not, but if you're thinking about it, let her know so she can start planning and all that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Moving on to Board of Education comments and committee reports. Catherine?
None.
Okay, Semra?
Thanks again for that reporting and looking forward to seeing how that data comes together. We do a really good job of presenting at the beginning, and maybe there's some way to be more uniform about like a later presentation that same year from either the district and the teachers. One. Thanks.
Kristen?
Yes, amazing presentations tonight, really great to see. And it's so exciting about everything that's happening. My bit of news is that this is my last meeting on the Board of Ed, and I'll send an email to everybody detailing it, but it just, some big changes professionally that kind of are requiring me to be a little bit more flexible with my schedule and less sort of spoken for in terms of my time. And it wasn't an easy decision to come to, but last year was a challenge. I felt like I missed a lot, and I kind of feel like it's hard to feel half in, half out. I really wanted to finish this term, which ends in May, but it just is feeling like I'm stretched too thin in this way. And so I'm so sad. I'm going to try not to cry. I'm really going to work hard not to do this. I'm really proud of a lot of the work that we've done over the very many years. And it's so exciting to see. I don't know if you've noticed, but like I've been not motioning the past several meetings I have been at, because it's like nice to step back and see how capable everyone really is of, to step up and do this work. And that I'm literally only an email or phone call away if there's any questions, but I kind of don't even know what to say. I should have written something down. Thank you all very much. It's been like a real honor to serve, and yeah. Oh, on just one point that I will put my 2 cents in. I'm glad the media is not here tonight, and I'm glad that we don't really have anybody in the audience. I don't know how this like trickles out exactly, but there tends to be like a thing about appointing versus going through election process. And I just feel like in leaving the board in this position, I would like to say that I was appointed to my first term, which was, I think, in 2015 or 2016. And then I also had gone through an election separately. And I think the election process is just cleaner. It sets you up for more success. If somebody's really interested in being on the board, they can come to meetings and attend and really get the feel for things and kind of be a part of it before they're a part of it. And then there's a real benefit to going out to the public and getting signatures and engaging those conversations. And the appointment process puts a lot of strain on the board. It's just like, it becomes personal, even if you don't want it to be personal. It's very rarely clean, and having done both, I can just say, and I'm not trying to order for the table before I leave the restaurant, you guys make your own decisions, but I do feel like I can just want to offer that perspective in case these conversations come up in the future. It was a big difference, and I think that it wouldn't have hurt to have just gone a few months. At that time, it felt urgent, but everyone's really capable of bringing the work forward, and you're better sort of onboarding after the school year's passed. That's it.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say, I'm gonna make you cry.
I'm like a middle child. I really want to like ghost. So like,
I just want to say a couple things.
Okay.
So I remember back when we were doing all this work to try and change things in the district that we felt weren't working. And I just remember like all of these parents, mostly women, but there were men there too, who just seemed so smart and determined and organized, and you were one of them. So you joined the board at this time of like real transition and uncertainty, and you brought clarity and data to the conversation, but you also had this insistence that things should and could be better. And I really appreciate that about you. And I think the conversation that we were having today about what we want our goals to be and how we want them to be reflected in the work we're doing, like you are one of the people who like sort of set the pathway for us to have that conversation. And we all know like how much time and attention and emotional labor goes into doing this job, this unpaid but very worthwhile job. So I just want to say, thank you for doing it for so long. You've made this district better, and that's just a fact. So thank you. Yeah, so should we just, did you want to say something, or should we move through board comments?
And then I can
Okay,
say something at the end.
perfect. Sorry, just, that was a new order of operations, so. So Chris?
You'll be missed, Kristen. Thanks so much for your service and the perspective you brought. Thanks for the presentation today, and just happy back to school, everyone. Nothing else.
Levon?
Same, Kristen. Best of luck with everything you've got going on. Great presentation tonight. I look forward to getting the information that we provided during the meeting, and best of luck with this school year.
Nice. Eric?
Yeah, best of luck, Kristen. It's been wonderful working with you. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
That's really all I have tonight. That's it.
Okay. Anthony?
Well, there's a theme. Tonight is my last board meeting. I've been on the board for 12 years. It was a heavy heart that I am leaving the board, but it's due to I got a promotion, and I'm going to be a colleague of Matt's, and I look forward to working with Matt on a collegial level, picking his brain for advice and some weaving through the weeds there. I was always taught volunteerism gives back more than you give it, and it's true. Volunteering for the board, I tried to give my all, but I got back 10 times fold. So it's hard work, enjoy it, but if you can instill anything in the kids today, teach them how to volunteer, because they'll get something back in return. Just my words of advice: stay in your lane, let the administrators do their job. Policy, direction to the superintendent, that's about it. Look at the data, but entrust the administrators, and always keep the kids in the forefront. So, but
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, thank you. Now I get to skip in line because I call the names, so woohoo. There are benefits. So you were on the board way back. Like I remember you were there like when we went through all this transition, and one thing I remember about you is like, or that I admire about you is that you're not afraid to say hard things, like in service of like moving the district forward. And I really admire that, and it's really important in the context of a board where we have to learn how to disagree constructively, or we have to understand different perspectives. So I really appreciate that. And the perspective that you brought as an educator is so invaluable. I mean, it's taught me a million different ways when we've had conversations, so I really appreciate that. And thank you for your professionalism and for your dedication and for saying the hard thing. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Meredith.
Well, I've known both of you for as long as I've been involved with the district, and it was after at the very end of a very late meeting, after some unexplained teacher transfers, when the entire board seemed to be deaf to what the public wanted, and your last name being White, you were the last commenter, and you said, like, what's going on here? And it was sort of a glimmer of hope that there was someone on the board that cared enough about kids and the impact on the kids and the teachers that I think gave our parent group the idea that we could actually make some change. And so I thank you for your bravery there, Anthony. You really were sort of the beginning of our work together. And Kristen and I worked very closely for a really long time, for a decade. And I think that we have a lot to be proud of. And I feel like you never quite know when to step out of this dance, but I really wish you well in the work that you're doing, and I hope that things work out. And I thank you both for the work we've done together. And thank you for starting that conversation tonight with the strategic plan. I think that is really, we've been kind of like, I don't know, traveling around this conversation for a while, and every time we have it, I think it gets a little bit better. We get a little bit closer to what we want out of it. And then I think there's some things with the state that are actually working in our favor in terms of the ideas, not in terms of the funding, but I look forward to more of that. I think we should have a PRAL meeting and a policy meeting soon, so I'll just contact people over email about that. That's all I have.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to say was I really appreciated the presentation, and I'm really excited about us. It's like, it's all of us, like it's everybody in this room sort of starting to have these conversations together about what we want for the district, what we want for the students, and like what that looks like from year to year. And that's really exciting that we're doing that. So I agree, it's a good start. So that's it from me.
So can I add to my superintendent report really quickly?
Please don't, Matt.
What's that?
I'm not going to agree with everybody else on the board. That's what drove me over tonight.
Then briefly, having to do say goodbye to both you as board members tonight, I don't think I saw it coming in terms of being on the same night. And so I just want to say a couple of things. Anthony, I'll start with you. You were the president when I came, and I shouldn't admit all these things now, but it was probably obvious I was super clueless about a lot of stuff. And just the number of phone calls from, I got hired in January, but didn't start until July. And so I think I probably had the longest transition process that like anyone on the face of the earth has ever had. And I would call Anthony about hiring stuff and budget stuff, but I would also be like, who's your cable provider? And, because I just, we weren't from here and we were coming from a different part. And so I think as you start, your journey as a superintendent, that, that first president you work with, you have a connection with, just because so much goes into that transition and so much is based on the president. And from that time on, I just am super thankful for everything you did for me, all your service to the board. And I think, I won't restate other things that were said, but you were always a strong advocate in, because you not only volunteer here, but you volunteer other places. And I know you were always out there kind of both listening to constituents, but also putting the district's best foot forward on budget and capital project votes and everything in between. So thank you for all that. And I indeed look forward to being your colleague as well as superintendents. And although I think we've been doing that for a while now, regardless of title. And then Kristen, you also, were there from the beginning for me. And just huge thanks for the word that comes to my mind is just the level of thoughtfulness you bring. And when I say thoughtfulness, I mean just really smart, deep thinking about every aspect of the community and the board. And it's not the board, the district and our kids and our staff. And I'm just that was really from day one all the way till now. And even when we talked a few days ago too. And I'm not gonna say I'll miss it because I'm gonna still seek it out, but I am just hugely appreciative of all of that really finely distilled, thoughtful information and thinking and passion about the district that you brought. And to the both of you, you know, this may sound cheesy, but I appreciate you both being part of a board that took a chance on me 8.5 years ago. And because, like, you know, I wasn't a superintendent. I didn't have any track record to speak of. That you all were going to do a site visit and it snowed and you couldn't come. So there was a bit of a leap of faith with all of that. And but you both were super supportive of our move to the district as a family. And that, I think, just, you know, speaking for my family, meant a lot to us and means a lot to us. So thank you both for that too. Have I gone? Can I do 20 more minutes? I did not plan an hour and 40-minute presentation as your swan song, but anyway, thank you both, and just super appreciative. And I got through it without getting super emotional, which I don't know if I should be proud of that but anyway. And now, Meredith, you're the only one left who actually hired me, so. Good, a little nervous over here, just kidding.
And on that note, okay, so, yeah, you guys will be missed. On to the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Are there any items that any board members would like to have removed from the consent agenda?
12.03C27.
12.03C27?
Correct.
Okay. Any more?
12.06F12.
12.06F12? Okay, any more? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve 11.01 through 16.04 minus 12.03C27 and 12.06F12?
So moved.
On second. Meredith, comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 9-0. Okay, can I have a motion to approve 12.03C27?
So moved.
Levon, second.
Second.
Second, Semra. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstaining?
Yes.
Okay. Passes 8-0. Is that how I say it? I can never remember. 8-0. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve 12.06F12?
So moved.
Kristen, second.
Second.
Second, Anthony. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstaining?
Abstain.
Okay. Passes 8-1, or 8-0. Sorry, I'm never going to get it right. It's always going to be the opposite of what's in my head. Okay. So that's that. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Levon, second.
Second.
Second, Kristen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Good night.